I used to travel a lot for work, and I would put my apartment up on Airbnb while I was away. My apartment has a bunch of closets and drawers which I used to leave empty and at my guests' disposal. However, there is one closet in the bedroom which I kept locked cause it is where I keep my personal belongings. One time a guest left a bad review saying that the place had no storage space, which I was very confused about until I got home and saw my closet. Dude had tried to open it using brute force, the door was almost pulled off its hinges and the wood was chipped in some places. The door in question had 2 padlocks, and the perfectly usable closet on the opposite wall was untouched. Rented out to a group of 4 girls. Turns out they were going partying every day during their stay. I get called one day at 5 a.m. It's the guard from my building telling me there's a passed out girl in the lobby's couch, puking and pissing herself. None of her friends had gone back to help her. Ruined the couch, obviously. The next day they send me a message again. Another one of the girls had sprinted to the building stairs and also pissed herself. A friend of mine rented to a girl who was convinced that there were cameras hidden all around the unit. She dismantled the lighting fixtures, picture frames, medicine cabinets, remote controls, etc. I worked in a call center that handles some of Airbnb's customer service. So, one guest murdered 2 people in the host's home and got arrested there. Another guest was from a culture that eats iguanas and barbecued up a 7-year-old girl's pet iguana to serve to the family as thanks for hosting him. Another guest filled a mug with human shit and left it in the host's microwave. You really lose all faith in humanity working in customer service call centers. Editing to add, Airbnb requires photo evidence for all host complaints, and guess who is the first to see them? The initial customer service agent, who may only be on their first or second day taking calls. And the iguana man was forced to pay for both a new barbecue for the family and a replacement iguana. Not a host, but I stayed at an Airbnb that rented 2 rooms. I was in bed and hear the other guest, a man and women, return. They're loud and drunk, but nothing crazy. About 10 minutes later I hear what I thought was them having sex, but then quickly realize it's someone getting hit. The host and I both hear this. The host starts knocking on the door, asking what's going on and to open the door. The woman opens the door and her lip is split wide open, she's bleeding all down her shirt. The guy is in the room, but runs out with a backpack and leaves. He's taken both of their cell phones and wallets. The police show up and everyone gives statements. They found him walking down the road, and he found different accommodations at the police station. I slept fine, the room was Harry Potter themed, so I still left 5 stars. We are live-in hosts, so we are present while guests stay in our spare room. A guest arrived and immediately announced that they had shit himself during their journey. They then marked us down for cleanliness. Mate, you shit yourself. Also a guest who found a pair of my flip-flops in a wardrobe that they should not have opened, then shit over the bathroom floor, ruining my favorite flip-flops in the process. Also, a guest who went out drinking for 10 hours before checking in, meaning I had to collect them from the taxi, put them in bed in the recovery position, check on them when I woke up for work, then call the taxi company on their behalf when it turned out they'd lost their phone. This thread is making me feel a lot better about the time my period started unexpectedly while sleeping on my host's white bed sheets. I at least had the decency to strip the bed and wash out what I could in the sink. Thankfully the hosts were out of town, and judging from their photos a lovely lesbian couple, I figured out of anybody, they would be the most sympathetic to my... A bit late to the party, but I have 2. One dude stole my trimmer. This other guy took the cake though. When I took him the second key to the apartment that his mother needed, he opened the door slightly ajar, and only extended his hand, palm facing up, to receive the key. Didn't want to shake my hand. Sent me messages complaining to me that drawers in the bathroom were full of personal stuff, One was full of items that we purposefully leave for guests to use, including new pads, soaps, toothbrushes. He was annoyed by this and said, "I'll just move this to one of the bedside tables in the master bedroom, shall I? Which is also full anyway." There, we leave blocks and pens for guests to use, as well as reading material like The Economist or guides to the city. This also annoyed him. He also complained about food that we leave for guests to partake of and be welcomed by. Upon leaving, Guy leaves a massive, scathing review including hot takes like the linens and pots being worn out and needing replacement. "They're not, and they don't. They're also top of the line," says the apartment was dirty upon entering. It wasn't. It was thoroughly cleaned before his arrival, as it is before every guest's arrival. He concludes by complaining the taxi ripped him off. I'm guessing the insinuation is that I was in cahoots with the taxi company? I don't know. His mother was nice though. I often wonder how parents who give birth to fucking idiots feel about said fucking idiots. A guy I work with told this story how he hired a maid though a referral from his friend. She was great apparently and asked to stay there a couple times when he was gone. After he agreed to let her stay a few weeks when it wasn't being rented however, she ghosted him. He ended up calling the cops and they checked up on her. She was there and although nervous, everything seemed normal. She later got a hold of him and asked to stay longer. He said no. Clean it and get out. He comes back randomly to his house at 5 a.m. a few days later, to someone sleeping in his downstairs room with dirty dishes and cigarette butts everywhere. Ends up it's this maid's heroin-addicted husband. He had been using it as a flophouse and drug den. This guy escorted the husband out by gunpoint pantsless. The place was trashed downstairs, but apparently perfectly clean still upstairs. His TV was stolen, but the husband brought it back and left it in the driveway, so he didn't get charged with theft. Apparently there was little he could do about the free stay the husband took advantage of. My wife and I were hosts for about a year to make ends meet. We had just moved to a new town so she could attend grad school. Guests had full access to the second floor while we lived on the first. Met a lot of cool people and ended up getting super host status. Last guests we ever had were an older couple that had traveled a lot. They seemed fine and we had a nice conversation, and they seemed fine with the accommodations. Keep in mind up until this point we had never gotten less than 5 stars from dozens of guests. Later that night I was at my job, bartending. Busy evening and homeboy rolls up saying he needs to talk with me outside. I hurry out trying to accommodate him, and also get back to my busy shift. He proceeds to lay into me at my place of work about how our space wasn't up to Airbnb standards, and they won't be staying there, and some friends found them another place to stay that night. I was confused but okay sure but I'll give you the full refund you're asking for. He goes on his way. We refund everything we had gotten from them. Airbnb did not refund the taxes and fees per their own terms and conditions. I think his main complaint ended up being a spider web under the bed, and that there wasn't AC upstairs. Mountain town on the east coast of US in the summer. It was warm but there were fans and it wasn't unbearable. I can understand why he'd want to stay somewhere else though. Anyways, we think it's all behind us, and my wife and I embark on a cross-country road trip a few days later to check out the country and go see her family on the west coast. First day the guy starts blowing us up through Airbnb messaging saying he didn't get all his money back and to send him the rest. We had returned all the money we got. We told him to take up the rest with Airbnb and that we couldn't help him. He was flipping out saying we were bad at business, and there were other avenues to get him his money back like Venmo, and some other crazy stuff to the point we had to contact Airbnb to take care of it so he would stop contacting us. He basically wanted us to pay him for taking away our opportunity to make some money off other guests that weekend and for him to insult us and our home. It was a crazy stressful situation at the beginning of a long trip, and influenced us to find a roommate instead of continuing with Airbnb hosting. We also had a dude and his girlfriend, who were probably in their late 40s, get absolutely hammered, come back around midnight, and she was throwing up in the yard while he laid on our living room floor with our dog talking junk about his girlfriend and asking us for weed. They were all right, but left about 40 empty cans up in the room for me to clean up.